In this video, we will critically examine the Mamman Vasa conspiracy trial and subsequent execution in 1986. We will provide answers to most of the questions that have been left unanswered over the years. Don't go anywhere. Hello, Hisplers. Welcome to another history video on Hispul Media. Gabriel here. If you are new here, consider subscribing to this channel. Thank you. Major General Mamman Vasa was a minister of the Federal Capital Territory. He was a schoolmate and class friend of President Ibrahim Babangida, and Babangida was the best man at his wedding. He fought in the Civil War and was commanding a battalion that was neighboring to Babangida's battalion. He was a prolific writer and a poet. When Babangida rose to power in 1985, officers whose loyalty could not be guaranteed were purged from the military. Within the months of Babangida's regime, 42 officers were retired from service. You are free to conclude that the purge was not thorough enough, as rumors of a coup plot began to circulate just few months into his regime. But the government refused to comment publicly on these rumors. Despite the government's refusal to comment on the allegations, several names were mentioned as the instigators of the coup. The rumors even spread throughout the barracks and Mamman Vasa's name was mentioned. The rumors got to Vasa's Audley, who was unsure how to approach his boss about such a delicate matter. Notwithstanding, the Audley disclosed this to his wife, who then spoke with his husband and urged him to discuss the matter with the president, Ibrahim Babangida. Babangida and Mamman Vasa both attended Bida Middle School at the same time and were also classmates from their days as military cadets. They also enlisted in the Nigerian Military Training College on the same day and were commissioned into the army on the same day. Vasa approached Babangida in a company of two mutual friends, one of which was Gado Nasco, and confronted him how he could suspect his own friend of coup plotting. Vasa allegedly asked Babangida, quote, "You heard I was planning a coup and couldn't even ask me. What kind of friend are you?" Babangida replied, quote, "I didn't believe it," or "Are you planning a coup?" Then Vasa reacted with a resounding no to this question. But the rumors became so intense that even Gado Nasco's name was mentioned as a suspect. Babangida refused to believe that their mutual childhood friend Nasco was involved. But it seems the president, who was one of the most security-conscious presidents Nigeria ever had, planted a mole to monitor their meetings, or probably one of them had compromised their plot. The government then infiltrated the plot. In order to monitor the plotters from close quarters, Shagaya arranged to stay in the same hotel during their last meeting held in Makurdi on December 1985. And of course, if you are enjoying this video or are getting any value from it, please smash the like button. It will go a long way to help us. Thank you. The federal military government formally acknowledged the plot when Major General Domkat Bali, chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff and Defense Secretary, announced on December 28, 1985 that officers from all the services were recruiting followers and finalizing plans for the overthrow of the government. The government, through Major General Bali, adduced the following reasons as responsible for the planned coup. He said the plotters opposed the retention of some public officers from the former regime. He also said they opposed the drafting of middle-ranking officers into the government. The federal military government was too concerned with human rights, and finally, that the federal military government rejected a loan from the International Monetary Fund. Even though these reasons seem amateurish, they were believed and accepted by the gullible public, partly due to the euphoria of a new government and Babangida's charm. At this time, however, the perpetrators were not named. A more critical analysis shows that the coup was a high point of a power struggle in the army between pro-Buhari and the pro-Babangida groups. The plotters were members of the old-fashioned and may have sought a return to the Buhari regime's disciplinarian culture. But one important thing to note is that at this point, Mamman Vasa's life was not in immediate danger, since Babangida was skeptical of his involvement. However, Vasa made a critical mistake, a mistake that in my view completely sealed his fate. While Mamman Vasa was on house arrest to allow for investigation, he attempted to escape through the air conditioner hole. It was at this point that Babangida considered to putting him in the cell. Shortly after 12 a.m. on December 23, 1985, a group of soldiers led by Major General Usman Kalabo Bello arrived at Vasa's home at Rumens Road, Ikoyi, to arrest him. The soldiers came with an arrest warrant signed by Brigadier Sani Sami, who was the Provost Marshal of the Nigerian Army. Vasa was taken away in a Peugeot 504 car. In order to avoid being followed, the vehicle was driven round Lagos before being taken to No. 7 Cameroon Road in Ikoyi. The first reaction of Vasa's family was to approach his army friends and classmates for help. They went to the house of Chief of Army Staff Major General Sani Abacha but did not meet him at home. They then approached Major General Gado Nasco for help. Gado Nasco was a senior army officer who was a schoolmate of Vasa and Babangida. Even though Nasco promised to help, but the situation was getting out of hand. Afterwards, Vasa's house at Rumens Road in Ikoyi was thoroughly ransacked by investigators, but nothing incriminating was found. Exactly 1 week after Bali made the announcement on December 27, 1985, the Information Minister Lieutenant Colonel Anthony Ukpo named the coup suspects. The suspects named include Major General Mamman Vasa, Brigadier Malamina Sarawa, Group Captain Ita David Ikpembe, Group Captain Salaudin Latinwo, Lieutenant Colonel Musa Bitiyong, Lieutenant Colonel Moses Effiong, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Iyoshi, Lieutenant Colonel Emmanuel Obeya, Lieutenant Colonel Christian Oche, Major Daniel Bamidele, Major D. Edwin West, Wing Commander Benny Kele, Wing Commander Adamu Sakaba, and Squadron Leader Martin Luther. A special investigation panel headed by Brigadier Sani Sami was constituted to investigate the coup. And then, Lieutenant Colonel Ajibola Kunle Togun, Felix Mujakperuo, Police Officer Alhaji Gambo Jimeta, and Group Captain Anthony Ikazobo were also members of the panel. Following the investigation, over 100 other officers were arrested and interrogated. Those that were interrogated but not charged were Victor Malu, David Mark, Mike Ahigbe, Tunde Obeha, and Rufus Pobeni. As has become customary following coup plotting, some officers were arrested based on weak circumstantial evidence. For instance, Colonel Obi, a brigade commander in Makurdi, was arrested simply because some of the suspects held a meeting in Makurdi. He was eventually released when it became clear that he knew nothing about it. The doctrine of guilt by association is commonly applied by interrogators who jumped at any name mentioned by the accused during questioning. This was the case when Lieutenant Colonel Moses Effiong was interrogated. When Effiong's social habits and how he spent his free time were questioned, he mentioned that he and Major General Shehu Musa Yaradua used to play squash together. Yaradua was almost arrested as an accomplice. But the interrogators only backed off when the mistake of suspecting Yaradua was emphasized. At the time of this coup, the Treason and Other Offences Special Military Tribunal Decree 1976 has lapsed due to the passage of time. The decree, which was adopted by the government of Lieutenant General Olusegun Obasanjo to try coup suspect in 1976 Dimka coup, was reenacted virtually word for word with slight alteration as the Treason and Other Offences Special Military Tribunal Decree 1986. This new decree authorized the federal military government to establish a special military tribunal to try the accused. On January 1986, the Special Military Tribunal was inaugurated by the Defense Minister, Major General Domkat Bali, and it began trying suspects at Dodan Barracks. Major General Charles Ndiomu, a renowned Ijaw officer from Delta State, headed the Special Military Tribunal. He had served in the Army since the 1960s, had previously served in the Army's Education Corps, and had prior military tribunal experience. In addition to the 14 original suspects, Lieutenant Colonel J.O. Onyeke, Captain G.I.L. Sese, and Lieutenant K.G. Dakpa were eventually implicated and added to the list of officers to be tried. Other members of the tribunal were Major Akin Kejawa, who was the judge advocate, Brigadier Yohana Yerima Kure, Navy Commodore Moritala Inyako, Colonel Rufus Kopolati, Group Captain Tony Ikazubo, Lieutenant Colonel Dansoho Muhammad, and the Commissioner of Police, Maman Nasarawa. Members on the waiting list included Colonel Okundayo Opalia and Lieutenant Colonel Musa Buka. When the trial was about to begin, one of the defendants, Lieutenant Colonel B.T. Young, objected to the inclusion of Group Captain Ikazubo in the Special Military Tribunal on the grounds that Ikazubo was also a member of the Special Investigation Panel that investigated the suspect prior to trial. B.T. Young's objection was upheld and Ikazubo was replaced by Colonel Okundaya Opalia. Many of the plotters were intelligent officers from the military's highest ranks in all three branches: Army, Air Force, and Navy. Before being recalled by the previous Buhari regime to work in intelligence at Supreme Headquarters, Lieutenant Colonel Oche was a PhD candidate at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. He or she was a bright and accomplished officer who had made a name for himself from his days as a cadet. He was previously the ADC to Lieutenant General T.Y. Danjuma, the former Chief of Army Staff and Defense Secretary. When President Shagari was deposed in 1983, he or she was the Brigade Major of the Brigade of Guards at Bonny Camp in Lagos. Many members of this squad were involved in the overthrow of Shagari. He or she, Effiong and Bamidele held training appointments at the Command and Staff College in Jaji. B.T. Young was the Army's Director of Logistics. Ahura and Luda were members of the Presidential Pilot Fleet, while Ogwiji was commander of the Navy vessel NNS Olokun. All the defendants pleaded not guilty. All of the accused were represented by military lawyers, with the exception of Maman Vasa. Vasa's request for Army officer and lawyer Johanna Madaki to represent him was denied. Vasa chose to defend himself and refused to give his interrogators a written statement. According to the prosecution, the defendant held two meetings in Lagos at the Sheraton Hotel and Makurdi and intended to bomb Iko Bridge, the Ikeja Cantonment and Dodan Barracks, then the official seat of the federal military government in Lagos, with cluster bombs dropped from the MiG-21 and Alpha fighter jets. Squadron leader Martin Luther, the leader of the Babangida's presidential pilot fleet, was rumored to be flying one of these Air Force jets. He or she said he met Ikele, Sakaba and others in Makurdi and apportioned duties for the coup in a statement dated 21st December 1985. He stated, "We ended up allocating areas of responsibility to personnel, like the operations cell, the political cell, the economic cell, the propaganda cell, and the logistics." He or she explained further that because the plotters required financial assistance, he opted to contact Maman Vasa via Bition, who was known to be close to Vasa. Bition sought Vasa for money to expand his farmland before the Sheraton Hotel meeting in Lagos. Between December 22, 1985 and January 13, 1986, Bition made 4 separate statements. According to the prosecution, Vasa allegedly offered Bition 10,000 naira as a financial contribution to the coup. Bition denied getting any money from Vasa in his first statement. But in his second statement, he admitted he had received 10,000 naira from Maman Vasa, out of which he gave he or she 3,000 naira as travel expenses. When the issue of financing came up, Bition told other plotters that he had received 10,000 naira from Vasa. That was the first strand of evidence against Maman Vasa and was used by prosecutors to allege that Vasa was the financier of the coup. The prosecution also alleged that Vasa used his position as Minister of the Federal Capital Territory to offer certificate of occupancy for prime plots of land in Abuja as inducement for officers to join the plot. For instance, he or she had applied for certificate of occupancy for years without success, but was suddenly awarded one by Vasa. In his defense, Maman Vasa denied having any knowledge of the coup. As a member of the Military Board of Inquiry that investigated the Dimka coup of 1976, Vasa claimed he had seen the intrigues that go on when people are planning coups. He went further to claim that he had informed the authorities when he heard rumors of a coup, but declined to name those he informed. Vasa admitted giving 10,000 naira to Bition, but claimed the money was an agricultural loan meant for some farming project. Vasa's son, Haruna, still has a copy of the receipts to this day. But the question then is, would Mamman Vasa have issued a receipt for money meant to finance a coup? Leave your thoughts in comment section. Vasa further claimed that he quickly awarded Bition a certificate of occupancy after instructing his staff to process all outstanding certificate of occupancy applications from military and police officers. He also refuted Bition's claim that he had lobbied Buhari to remove Babangida from his position as Chief of Army Staff when he was in office. The defendants admitted that Effiong, Vasa, Akwashiki, and Edwin West did not attend any of their coup meetings. Effiong was roped in and arrested at the Command and Staff College in Jaji, where he was serving as directing staff. Although Iyoshi told interrogators that he mentioned the plot to Effiong, he and other plotters considered that Effiong did not attend any of their meetings, nor was he even invited to any meetings, nor was he one of their conspirators. Effiong also denied knowing anything about the plot. Ndiomu was not impressed with the defense. According to him, Vasa had long nursed grievances against the president, and that the evidence revealed the contempt and animosity Vasa had against the president since he, Babangida, was Chief of Army Staff. On February 25, 1986, 17 of the defendants, including Mamman Vasa, were found guilty of treason. According to the tribunal chairman Ndiomu, Vasa was the mastermind and financier of the plot. He said, quote, "It is pretty clear to the tribunal that Major General Vasa, the poet and rich author and soldier, an intelligent man, knew what he was doing. Not only was he financing the plot, he was masterminding it." Major General Ndiomu added that Vasa's protests of innocence were clearly the impulsive psychological mechanism of a person who has something to hide. 13 of the accused were sentenced to death, including Mamman Vasa. The defendants had 7 days to appeal their death sentences, which were subject to the Armed Forces Ruling Council's confirmation. There was no right of appeal to other tribunals or courts, and only the Armed Forces Ruling Council could confirm or modify the punishment. Babangida was no stranger to life or death discussion about coup plotters. But in the circumstance, the case for clemency was convincing. The defendant had not actually carried out a coup, having merely taken preparatory steps towards it. On March 4, 1985, Nigerian literary icons John Pepper Clark, Chinua Achebe, and Wole Soyinka met with Babangida to appeal for clemency. Despite the assurances from Babangida, the plea fell on deaf ears. The death sentences were then sent to the Armed Forces Ruling Council for review. It has been alleged that during the Armed Forces Ruling Council deliberation, Mariam Babangida, his wife, tried to reach the husband on phone to seek for mercy for Vasa. This effort proved abortive as Babangida could not pick her calls. It has also been alleged in some quarters that Babangida himself personally favored a commutation of the death sentences. However, military officers from Plateau State praised Babangida to carry out the death sentences. In their view, officers from their state suffered disproportionately and were executed in the aftermath of the 1976 Dimka coup. So, this was time for revenge. Recall that Mamman Vasa was the secretary of the Board of Inquiry that investigated the 1976 coup. So, if the execution were not carried out, it was possible that officers from Plateau State may become a future source of military coups against the regime. It is therefore fair to say that for the Babangida's regime, the execution was a win-win. On the 5th of May 1986, at about 6:30 p.m., 10 of the condemned men, Mamman Vasa included, were taken out of their prison cell and executed by firing squad at the Kirikiri Maximum Prison. The execution order was read by Peter Obaleme, and the firing squad was commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Olorogun. Vasa remained mute throughout. Before the firing squad went to work, Vasa removed his wristwatch and wedding ring and asked for them to be given to his wife. at about 8 p.m., Major General Domkat Bali made a nationwide broadcast confirming that the convict had been executed. He said the punishment for treason is death. But was there really a coup against the regime? It may interest you to know that none of the accused officers commanded any sizable body of troops enough to overthrow or threaten any government. In fact, most of them had no troops under their command. Unfortunately, the public never questioned the validity of the claims by the federal military government led by Ibrahim Babangida. No general officer commanding was implicated in the plot. Since July 1966, no military coup in Nigeria has succeeded without the support of at least one general officer commanding. So, how can Mamman Vatsa, who was serving as a minister and had no body of troops at his disposal, execute a coup against the regime? Another point of note is that many of the other condemned men held training appointments. The federal military government gave two main evidence against Mamman Vatsa. First, that Vatsa gave Bitiyong the sum of 10,000 naira, which was meant to finance the coup. But the question is, can this amount of money finance a coup even in the 80s? Let me hear your thoughts in comment section. Second, it was claimed that Vatsa issued certificate of occupancy to the plotters as an inducement to participate in the coup. But Vatsa also issued certificate of occupancy to other members of the military, including one of those who sat in judgment and sentenced him to death, and to other members of the government as well. Even though Vatsa gave money to Bitiyong, there was no other direct evidence linking him with the plot, nor did he even attend any of the plotters' coup meetings. Hence, the federal military government spent so much time and effort trying to link Vatsa with the plot. In the absence of any watertight evidence, the prosecution only had to claim that Vatsa had a motive or grievances with the president, Ibrahim Babangida. Lieutenant General T.Y. Danjuma allegedly informed Babangida of an unspoken but ever-present rivalry between Vatsa and Babangida. The rivalry is said to have started while they were both young officers and seemed to pursue and reach the same goals and rank. So how true is this? T.Y. Danjuma is still alive, and we hope he may come across this and clear the air. According to Professor Omu Omorin, a former aide to Babangida, Vatsa did not hate Babangida. He said, "You know, Vatsa was a humorous person, but Babangida is not." Babangida later justified the execution of Mamman Vatsa by claiming that if he was not planning a coup, why was he trying to escape? He went further to say, Vatsa was like a scorpion in one's pocket. If he had been retired, he could still have planned a coup from outside. So, was Mamman Vatsa guilty as charged? Did he deserve to die? Leave your thoughts in comment section. Watch this video here next for more on how Major Gideon Oka attempted to overthrow the Babangida's regime in 1990. Please smash the like button on this video. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in that video. Peace.